So, as mentioned before the ad break, the Dublin Marathon, unfortunately, one of the many casualties of the pandemic for obvious reasons. Usually it's a big part of October bank holiday weekend. It's been cancelled. But the new plan, as we try and inch towards some kind of normality, is to have the marathon in its usual date, as sponsored by KBC, virtually. So we're looking at the KBC Virtual Dublin Marathon this year. You can run the marathon via an app. Entries for the public are going to open on Wednesday, the 15th of July. If you go onto kbcdublinmarathon.ie, entries cost €15. You'll get your medal. There'll be a sense of achievement, many of the usual aspects of the marathon, hopefully, and you run it using the app in your locality. Lizzie Lee is an Olympian. She ran at Rio, finished 56th at the Rio Games, ran 2 hours 39.5, and she was on the podium in 2018 as national champion at the Dublin Marathon 2 years ago. Lizzie, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
So, virtual marathon, these are strange times.
These are strange times, but I think we all need something to look forward to, something to train for. Certainly for me, the straw that broke the camel's back during lockdown was the cancellation of the Dublin Marathon, because I have a small baby and I had planned my return to racing was going to be the Dublin Marathon, October bank holiday weekend, that magical day around Dublin. But, you know, if there's something else that's going to fill the race calendar for us runners, then a virtual option, which we can do with some club mates around the streets of Cork instead of Dublin, is the next best thing, I suppose.
So that was the day, was it, when you allowed yourself a few tears and acknowledged how rotten this whole situation was? Yeah.
I had, going into this, I had a 3-month-old toddler and a junior infant who I was homeschooling. So and a husband working from home. So it was all a bit mad, and that was the day. I said to my husband at the start, I said, look, I'm just going to get back into the running and I'm going to train for Dublin until someone tells me I'm not training for Dublin. And it was the day where they told me I wasn't training for Dublin where I had the little, the big cry, actually. I had a decent cry that day.
Bar of chocolate, sit down. Yeah. How quickly after giving birth, I think it's your third child in December, yeah. How quickly did you get back into training?
With this, I found the third a lot harder than the first two. I suppose I'm probably older and my body, this is my third pregnancy, the third baby. So I think it probably took about 4 months to get back into kind of even doing an hour. I got back early January and then just got tendinitis. It didn't work. So I think the day that Leo closed the schools, I was probably doing 30 minutes then. So I'm probably one of the only athletes in Ireland who kind of welcomed it in a way, in that I didn't need to race urgently. I didn't have any race plans and I wasn't fit. So it gave me a nice kind of cool and relaxed way to get back fit with no pressure and no one screaming at me to do a race or anything. So that was kind of good. And to be honest, the running, I mean, and there's going to be people listening to this everywhere saying, yes, the running kept me sane with the small kids in the house and the homeschooling and the breastfed baby and the whole lot. The running was what kept me sane, and it was my joy and my, you know, if I learned one thing in lockdown, it was just that I just simply love running. And if I never raced again, I'd be a bit sad. But if I never ran again, that'd be a different kettle of fish, you know. So, so I'm still not back fully in the swing of things. She's 7 months old, and I'm not fit, but I'm getting fitter every week, which is great fun.
And so where in the midst of your husband's full-time job and 3 kids and breastfeeding and a million other things going on, did you manage to go for a run? What time?
Very early in the morning. Very early. I'm done by 9 every single morning. So yesterday morning was lashing, and I went out in the lashing rain around 6ish, and then I went down to the Leeville Clubhouse, which is now open, yay, and I did my gym session, thanks to Joe O'Connor down at Nicest Fitness, my strength and conditioning coach, and got that all done by 9 yesterday morning. And that's just the way I have to get it done, because once I'm home, you know, there's no let up, because we don't have I don't anymore at the moment, the school option and you know, the babysitters and the creches and all that. I'm on maternity leave, so they're all sitting looking at me for the rest of the day.
Maternity leave during this pandemic must be a very strange thing. You have the benefit of 2 previous experiences, so you have something to compare it to. I mean, on the one hand, maybe there is something nice about cocooning away with your new arrival and a happy family. On the other hand, I suspect for families not being able to see the new arrival or have that support network, it could be very, very difficult. How did you find it this time around?
I found it tough, and I mean, I know there was so many other people with so many other major problems, but maternity leave is isolating at the best of times. So then layer on the fact that you're actually isolated. It was tough, and I feel really sorry for any new moms, because you need that support of your sisters and your mother and your best friends. You need those women who have the experience to tell you you're doing okay and it's all good. And you know, to not have that, I mean, FaceTime is just, it's not the same. And then, you know, I have several friends with small babies who only saw their grannies for the first time, you know, last week and the week before, and even talking about that now. That's really hard. So yeah, it was interesting times, you know. Yeah, and I suppose because I'd been through it twice before, I knew what I was at. I knew what I was doing. But still, I mean, I was plaguing my sister, 2 or 3 times a day on the phone, just to, you know, a bit of support and a bit of tell me I'm doing okay, and it's, you know, we're all going through this. It's all really hard, you know.
And that's your third time around. So a first-time mother,
yeah.
that sense of isolation you talk about must be particularly acute.
Oh, no breastfeeding groups, no mum and baby groups, no swimming with a small baby, you know, none of that, the meeting coffee, meeting your friends, you know, none of that. So you're just at home with your small baby, wondering if you're doing it okay and if it's all right, you know. And then also not having the little let up of an hour with Granny, you know. I'll just leave the baby there with Granny, because everyone trusts their mother with the child, you know. Yeah. So, and to not have that was really difficult. And I found that difficult, but that's why when I had the opportunity to get out for that run at dawn, I was just gone, no phone, nothing, no one could get me. I'm gone for an hour and a half. And then I'll come back and I'll face it all for the day. But I've got my endorphins and I've got my me time for the day, and I can handle anything once you put a coffee in my hand at the end of that run.
So I was reading, I mean, people are familiar with your career, Lizzie, and you had a crack at getting to London 2012, and you got to Rio in 2016, and you ran 2 hours 39, and you know, it seemed like a joyous kind of experience for you. You had ruled out Tokyo, presumably with the new arrival this time around. Does the postponement for a year mean you might re-rule Tokyo back in, or where's your head at?
Right now, to motivate me to get out in the morning, well, there's 2 things. One is the sanity part, which is really important. But the second thing is they haven't ruled out a cross-country season. Cross-country, for anyone who isn't familiar, the senior women's race in the European cross-country, which is supposed to be in Dublin in December, would have on average about 60 women. So we're not talking about thousands of people running on roads. We're talking about 60 women from Europe running around the field. So that hasn't been cancelled yet. It may be, I don't know. But I would love a green vest in Abbottstown in December, and that course is tough, and it's a slog fest, and it's made for a marathoner, with the likes of Fanula and Ciara McGean. That puts fire in my belly. And you need a good cross-country season to run a good marathon. So if one helps the other, I do see myself doing a marathon as soon as we're able to, probably 2021, you know, realistically. And if I got a really good time, then, you know, we'd see. But my mother always says to me, you have the rings, you know, and the sacrifices to get to the Olympics they're ginormous. Like, it's absolutely, you eat, sleep and breathe it every single day. There is no let up if you're going to the Olympics. You know, for 4 years, it's just all you do. You miss things with your friends. You have naps on Saturday and Sunday. You don't go for weekends away. You don't, like, that sounds like little things, but I mean, I'm talking about absolutely everything, every single day. There is no let up. You know, I didn't drink alcohol for 4 years, at all, because it was just all about Rio and getting to Rio. So, you know, is that fair on my small baby and my, you know, with one child it was kind of manageable, but is it fair now on the rest of the family? If it came easily, then sure, I'd never say never. But also, you know, I was injured January and February. That could easily come back again, you know. So, and I'm older now, I'm 40, so I just don't know how my body is going to cope with the extra miles and the extra training. So I think realistically, I'd love to do a cross-country season, and I'd murder you for an Irish Fest again for around Abbottstown. So hopefully that happens, and then if that was a stepping stone to something else, then fab.
Did you find it hard not to drink for 4 years, or not to pull over and have a McDonald's?
There may have been 1 or 2 McDonald's. Well, Lennox's, that's what we have in Cork. Not really, no, because it was just all I wanted in the world was to go to the Olympics. That was like, anyone who's at home training for the Olympics is nodding now, going, yeah, I totally 100%. Or even, you know, it's an All-Ireland or whatever it is. it's just all I wanted. So it wasn't, I didn't see it as a sacrifice. Because people say to me sometimes, no, oh, you're great, you get up early in the morning. That's not a sacrifice or a penance for me. That's my joy, that's my bliss. So if to get to my goal in life, I was so close to it, and so many people aren't that close to it. If I was that close, then I wasn't going to give it away by, not dotting my I's and crossing my T's. If that's all I had to do. And I was so aware that I was so lucky to nearly be there that I wasn't going to mess it up. Does that make sense?
It does, totally. And if, too much of anything, it can make even a pursuit that you love slightly monotonous. Did you reach a point across those 4 years, for instance, where you wake up and you think, oh my God, not another 15 miles today?
There was a pregnancy in the middle of that 4 years.
Okay.
So I think that really remotivated me then. So I had the year off, and I trained through pregnancy, but you don't train hard in pregnancy because you can't, right? So you're in kind of second gear, the whole thing. So then I came back, and I was vigorous pregnancy, and then it was kind of chunked because after I qualified, there was a Euro Cross and a bronze medal with the team. And then Donny cleverly gave me about 4 weeks really easy before we hit into the 6 months before Rio. So it was nicely broken up. There were mornings where, it's lashing rain, you're like, God. But there's a great chapter in Michael Phelps' book where he talks about how his coach, he rocked up to training saying he didn't feel like training, and the coach didn't let him train for the whole session. And halfway through, he said, your man there is going to beat you in the next gala. And Michael Phelps wanted to get into the pool, and the coach said, you're not getting in because you didn't want to, but remember this the next time. So when I feel like that, I think of the girls all around the country, and I'm like, they're getting up in the lashing rain this morning, so I have to get up in the lashing rain if I want to beat them or, be with them. So I think I do little tricks to myself to get myself to turn my brain around. Or I imagine that I'm injured, and I go, well, if you were injured, you couldn't go and you'd be bullying, so go. Little tricks to get yourself out the door. And once you're out the door, it's fab. You're never sad. You're always happy. Once you've done a mile, you're out there, and it's great.
What's the Irish standard of marathon running like in comparison with 4 years ago?
Brilliant. It's come on hugely. John Tracy's record is in jeopardy. It's come on every single 4 years, and the part of that is there's a huge shout out here goes to Jim Ockney, who's the race director of the Dublin Marathon, for creating the marathon mission along with Dick Cooper from Raheny. They created this marathon mission, this squad, to try and improve the standards in Ireland, and they sent us to races abroad, and they brought us together to train, and it just snowballed. And we saw, for London, I saw Linda Byrne and Katrina Jennings, get to the Olympics, and I was like, well, I'm roughly there, I can do that standard. So, and I know there's girls now training for Tokyo who are like my contemporaries who are, I was only a minute off Lizzie, 4 years ago, so why can't I get there this time? And that's brilliant. So it's come on hugely. Like the 2 times I think the first and second women in Dublin this year were the fastest Irish times, first and second fastest Irish times ever on that course by Irish women. I mean, that's massive, and the men as well. I mean, with Kevin Seward and Paul Pollock and Stephen Scullion and the Claw, we're seeing 2:11s, which is insane. We never thought we'd see that. We thought it was just John Tracy. So that's brilliant.
You mentioned there you're 40 years of age, and as I understand it, you only took up competitive running aged 26. Why so late, and what was your relationship with sport like across your teenage years?
I did loads of sport in my teenage years, everything. I was always a utility player because I was fit, but I wasn't very skillful. So I loved sport. I played everything. Pat Coleman was my PE teacher down at Bishopstown Community School. Played everything. Did a bit of cross country. Didn't really like it, but I was from a very sporty family. My dad cycles. He still cycles at least 100 miles a week, and he's 70. I turned 40 in lockdown. My dad turned 70. So from a sporty family, but I never did anything massively competitive. Like, I didn't win medals at anything really. I just played everything. And then I got into triathlon at 26 just for charity. And I did the Chicago Triathlon, and Eamon Coughlin came with us because he was patron for the Crumlin Children's Hospital at the time. And he told me at the end of the race that I was actually a runner, not a triathlete. And eventually, a few years later, I listened to him inject in the bike and the swim, and it just kind of it went from there. And I don't think I would have gotten to Rio if I had gone to the running too early, because still at the age of, like when I was 35, I still considered myself a baby runner because I was still running PBs and having experiences. Like my first world cross country, I think I was like 35, you know. So I was still getting these cool experiences that some people might be jaded, you know, having run European cross country 6 times as a junior, you know. So to me, it was still all new and bright and shiny. So I think that kept the motivation going.
God, that's amazing. So at 24, 25, if someone said to you, you know you're going to be an Olympian, this is like ludicrous.
Absolutely. I think back and all I wanted to do was break 3:40 in the Dublin Marathon in 2006 or 7 because it would get me a qualifier for Boston.
So you've knocked an hour off that.
Yeah, that's what I ran. I ran 3:34 for Dublin, and then 10 years later went back and I ran 2:35 to win a national title. I don't know how it happened. It just kind of was a snowball. I just was getting better and better all the time, and I was fortunate to have amazing coaches. I mean, Gary Crossan and Marie McCambridge were my first coaches in Pirana and Dublin, and then I was with John Hill when I went to Sydney for a year, and then I came back and Donny Walsh, end of story. And then the icing on the cake then was Donny Walsh was coaching my athletics, and after I had Lucy, then Joe O'Connor in Tralee. He was strength and conditioning coach for the Limerick Hurlers, and they won the All Ireland. And that was the big difference. Then that was when I went from 2:38 to 2:32. I took up the strength and conditioning, and there was a pregnancy, and I think both of them then that was the clincher then for getting down to 2:32 and getting my bum on the plane to Rio and to Sao Paulo, where I met Richie McCormick, who bought me vast amounts of coffee in the airport at 2 o'clock in the morning.
He's good for coffee.
He's good for minding your cases when you're terrified in Sao Paulo airport at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Is he? Okay, good to know. Good to know. So, do you know, you mentioned Rio, and this is the pinnacle for you, and it's something of a miracle as well. And you've outlined this kind of amazing, miraculous story to get there, and it's everything kind of good about sport. And then at the other end of the spectrum, if you think of Rio and you think of the winner of that race, Jemima Sumgong, she won gold, and in second place was Eunice Kirwa, who transferred from Kenya to Bahrain at the age of 29. These things just happen now increasingly, and she finished second. So first and second in that marathon that you took part in Rio subsequently tested positive for EPO and were banned. And so you think you're standing on that start line with them and you finish in the top 60, and let's be honest, they are far from the only ones in that race who were doing something. You must, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. How does that make you feel? Is that something you think of very often?
Okay, my stretch goal for Rio, standing on the start line, was the top 50. Stretch goal. Donny said break 2:40. And that was, I had everything figured out for the pacing, and it was so hot. It was like 33 degrees. It was horrible at the end. So broke the 2:40, and I came 56th. And I remember my dad saying to me at lunch the next day, he said, you came in the top 50. And I said, I know, yeah. He said, you definitely did. Looking at those girls, yeah, definitely. There's no way that at least 6 of them aren't on something. And sure enough, 2 of them have tested. That's the ones we know about. But I think you just have to believe in the ones that you're certain of. And we all have our favourites, like Des Linden for me. I think she was 6th in Rio. I met her the next day. She's American. They call her the metronome. I love her. She's amazing. I believe in Des. So Des for me is the one who I'm going to look to, who I'm going to follow, who I know, is fabulous. Florence Kiplagat's another one I just love. And
why do you believe in those people, Lizzie?
Because they're around forever. Right, they're around for enough. If someone's running marathons for 15 years, and they'll run everything all the time, then you just believe in them, and they'll show everything. They show all their training. They don't do anything ridiculous. They don't, they chip away at their times, and they just get that little bit better all the time. They don't come out and break the world record, and no one's ever heard of them, because that's happened. That happened in the half marathon last year, and I can't even remember the name. And that's not believable. It's when they're around for a long time that you kind of go, yeah, I believe in that person. They're knocking around forever. But you can get cynical, right? You could. We have to look to ourselves and say, right, from an Irish perspective, how are we doing? I was tested 3 times in my pregnancy with Jess, out of competition in my house. So, you can, we are tested in Ireland. We can look ourselves in the mirror and say, yes, I know I'm clean, because they're rocking up to my house on a bank holiday weekend to test me out of competition. But I think, like, you could let it all consume you, or you could just get on with it and do the best you can and be honest. Other than money, I can't see why you'd ever do it. And that sounds so naive and whatever. But like, crossing the finish line, having taken something, just would be totally empty to me. I don't know why. At my level, anyway, it would just make no sense. I think you can certainly see some people. I've chatted to Rob Heffernan about this before. Some people, they're paying for their house. They're giving stuff back to a village where there's poverty. Not excusing it, but there's more reasons for it. But I just, I think with anything, you just have to park it and just get on with your own stuff and do your own training and do the best you can. I do think things are getting better because they've caught all these guys. We're seeing big names now get busted, and we weren't seeing big names get busted a few years ago. So I think we're seeing the process is a bit more honest now, and I think we're going to see more big names get dropped in the following years.
And Lizzie, to what extent is it an open secret amongst the field? Like, when you bump into the 2 or 3 fellow competitors that you admire and have faith in, if you're having a chat, for instance, does everybody in the field know that Jemima and Eunice in 2016 are doping, or is it a surprise?
I wasn't surprised by Jemima. I shared a taxi with Jemima in New York. I did the women's mini marathon, the 10K in New York, and I shared a taxi back to the airport with her, and she had broken her collarbone or damaged it badly in the London Marathon in April, and she told me then she'd missed training for 6 weeks, and she had destroyed us all in New York. Now, destroying me is one thing, but she destroyed the likes of Kim Smith and Des Linden and these ones, she beat everyone by about 80 seconds. And I remember saying to my husband, she's back training 3 or 4 weeks, and she's after running. She ran 31:41, I think, on a hilly Central Park course. I couldn't believe that.
And when you're in the taxi, is that something you're going to say to her?
No, we didn't talk at all.
Okay.
I've been in situations with athletes who I would think are not clean, and I've gone to a different table for breakfast, and that happens. That happens in hotels. People just don't mix with the people that they think are dodgy. It's not something people talk too openly about. You'd talk openly about it with your Irish team pals. You wouldn't to another federation, because we know what's going on with us. We know we're all tested. So we know that we're clean, and then you just kind of wouldn't want to have too much gossip or bad blood. And you could end up rooming with these people as well. You go out to a race and you're thrown in with somebody, so be a little bit careful and a little bit PC while you're still competing. I think where you see people getting very vocal about it is when they've retired. And it's much easier in that situation, as you can imagine.
Sure, yeah. I wanted to ask you about the new shoes as well, like the Alpha Fly Next percentage shoes. I know you were tweeting about these and wondering where you get them. They were launched last month. People have been hearing about this for the last year, 18 months. Kipchoge wore a version of these when he went for the 2-hour marathon. So they've narrowly avoided a World Athletics ban. So they are very much absolutely legal. There's a carbon fibre plate and all sorts of technology. The net result seems to be, I don't know, maybe you know the percentage, but all athletes seem to be gaining pretty significantly with these shoes. Have you managed to get a pair yet?
I haven't. If anyone knows of a Euro size 40 Alpha Fly pair, I'd love a pair. Not that there's a race in my horizon, but sometime, maybe February or something. I haven't. I do have I had the original, 4% without the carbon plate, and I loved them. Definitely loved them. I wore them in Dublin. They're the first version. I found that they just made me bouncy in the last few miles, and my calves didn't seize up. So they were fab. Right. There's a next percent, which is the next version up. Santa brought me them, and I haven't put them on yet because I told Donny that until I break 17 minutes for 5K in a time trial, I'm at 17:05. I don't deserve them. So when I get a little bit faster, I put them on because I don't want to believe I'm at a certain level and it's just the shoes. I don't have the carbon plate ones. I've heard they're amazing. They've definitely improved the standard. There is absolutely no way you can say they haven't, because if you look at the standards that they set out for Tokyo, they did their homework when they set out the standards for Tokyo. The way it works is it wasn't just a flat time. They said 2:29:30. They expected 40 women to get to 2:29:30, and then they were filling the rest with top 5 in a goal label and this point system. And the point system is like if you run Dublin and you're Irish, you get loads of points for winning a national title. And they're now at something like 72 in the women at 2:29:30. and under because of the shoes. And it's, in the men, they're actually at capacity with the standard. They didn't expect this.
Right.
So that's because of the shoes. There's no two ways about it. So it looks like you're looking at a minute or two. I know some people, depending on their gait, get a better benefit. Because I haven't worn the Alpha Flies, I can't talk now. And the thing is now, everybody's brought them out. So every if you looked at the US trials, for example, Alafine Tulimuk, who won the women's race, she was in Hoka 1. She was in their version, the Carbon X.
Okay.
I've done a lot of homework on these.
Yeah.
They look the nicest, actually. Of the lot of the Alpha Flies look rotten. So they're big. They're the black version anyway. So yeah, I mean, they're an improvement. Do I think they're ethical? Well, the thing is, I'm not going to go down to a local road race and race somebody who's wearing them unless I'm wearing them, because I want to be on a level playing field. Is that annoying? Yes, it is. Is it annoying that I spend 300 quid on a pair of shoes? Yes, it is. But I'm just going to do it, because if everyone's doing it and they're legal and all the brands have brought them out now, then, I can't see them join them.
Okay. And are many of the old timers saying we need to ban these? They're destroying records which deserve not to be destroyed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. And they are destroying records which deserve not to be destroyed. I mean, the Ballycotton 10 is gone now, but but Maria McCambridge ran a spectacular 54:20 there one year. And the thought of that getting beaten by a pair of shoes, by a very, very fit girl, and this is the thing Breach Connolly, who was in Rio with me, always says, you got to be fit putting these shoes on. They're not magic.
Yeah.
But, if you are very, very fit, somebody who's in 55-minute shape breaking that record, that would have stuck in my craw a bit, So yeah, there are people who, are giving out, but they're not going to ban them now. They've let them go. So now you see, if you take a photograph of the start line of any road race, when we do get them back, you're going to see them. You're even seeing them at park runs now, because everyone's wearing them.
So again, we're talking to Lizzie Lee here and Off the Ball this evening, because the Dublin Marathon, one of the casualties of the pandemic, it is going to happen in a virtual way, still sponsored by KBC, and you can run the marathon via an app. Entries begin on Wednesday, 15th of July at noon. Go to kbcdublinmarathon.ie. You can log in there, you can make your entry. I think you'll get a medal and everything, so they're trying to make this as normal as possible. And Lizzie, the point is you run this in your locality and you've got an app, and potentially your family can judge where you'll be on your particular marathon route and come out and support you. Yeah, they can track you. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So the point is to try and make this something of an event for people, which is what it was for so many years, and the popularity of the marathon is incredible of late.
Absolutely. Like the way I would envisage this is, if you're going to do the marathon, you're going to train with 2 or 3. Normally you see groups of 2 or 3 training. I would rock up with the start line on that morning. I would wear my club gear. I'd be in my Leavale singlet. I'd tell my family exactly where I was going to be, what my number is, how to track me on the app. And I would have, my kids doing water stations for me. I would personally probably do some form of laps, just to make it logistically a bit easier, something without too many traffic lights on it. We want something to look forward to. People need accountability as well. So if there's something in the diary for the October bank holiday weekend, and you've started telling people you're going to do it, and you've got this tracker that is online and it's all honest, and you've got your time that you can look at the end of the day, then I see a big sense of achievement in that. And then you get your beanie and you get your medal at the end of it. It's different, but it's where we are now. And if you can do it with a few friends, what I was thinking was, even if you're a super fast runner and there's someone in your locality who is a 4 mile at your marathon pace, then meet them and have them meet you at 22, and they do the 4 mile and you do the last 4 miles with them, so that you've got company because the last 4 miles of marathon are hell. That kind of thing, and get as many spectators out along the route as you can safely and within social distancing guidelines. But you could make this really fun. My brother's in Westport AC, and I'm like, get a gang in Mayo, and start training. And because there's a 4 mile, a 10K and a half marathon, you could choose your distances, and you could have laps and picking people up like a Pied Piper along your marathon route, which sounds kind of cool to me.
A last point, and you've kind of segued perfectly into it when you talk there about the last 4-5 miles of marathon. So based on everything you've told us so far, it's clear you're an endorphin junkie, and you're up at 7 a.m. and get out there. And I'd say you're pretty grumpy if 3-4 days go by without you running.
100%.
Where does your head go those last 4 or 5 miles? Like it's some kind of chemical, emotional, physical place, I suspect. Where do you tend to be in your head as you're, I presume, suffering, but also maybe somewhere joyous as well? Those final stages of a marathon.
It's kind of like an outer body experience. It's actually akin to giving birth, which sounds a bit mad, but it really is, because you just kind of go into this. I just got to get this done place, and you stop. You can't let yourself think of the 4 miles that you've got left. You just got to think of this mile right now and what I'm doing. And I start imagining things. So for Dublin, for me, it was so special because Jim Mochney has supported me for years. My first ever race abroad, Jim Mochney sent me off to Gothenburg for a half marathon. So I knew Jim was going to be at the finish line. I also knew my coach, Donny, who'd won the national title in 1971, was going to be at the finish line. And I started imagining those hugs and that reunion and how good it's going to feel, and how, I also addressed the gremlins. So I actually out loud might even say, go away. I look like a lunatic. I will say it in my head. I'll say, gremlins, go away. Like, it's not happening. I don't care if you feel bad. You're going to push through, because I trust Donny. I trust the training he's made me done. I trust that my legs are just going to get me there. And you do kind of, like, I don't remember a lot of the end of the Dublin Marathon. I do remember one or two faces kind of by the RDS, and I remember this wall of support as I went into the finishing chute. Like, it was actually like I was carried to the finish line. It was unbelievable, being an Irish person, coming in for third overall. It was just incredible. But that's, Nuala O'Neill, who's won the Cork Marathon 3 times, she's a training buddy of mine, she always says, you're only at halfway when you hit 22. So that's the way you've got to treat a marathon in your brain, that, I'm at halfway, I'm hitting 22, and that's when the real work begins. And you just got to slog it out, and just know you can't get back out there, right? If you stop a walk at 23, you can't get back out and rectify the time and fix it. So you've just got one chance, and just make the best of what you can with that one chance.
Lizzie Lee, a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. That's Lizzie Lee there, Olympian at Rio in 2016, and we'll be running the Dublin Virtual Marathon in October, bank holiday weekend. So if you're interested, kbcdublinmarathon.ie is where you can go on Wednesday from noon.